MOZA has spent the past few years establishing itself as one of the most popular sim racing brands with a pretty huge lineup of products. With a well-rounded lineup established, the Chinese brand is now doing a second and in some instances a third pass on its products to update and improve them. The CRP2 pedals are a perfect example of this, with the first iteration of CRP pedals being pretty well received. But MOZA has improved its design language since its launch a few years ago, meaning these upgraded pedals look remarkably different. In this review, I'm going to share my thoughts on the CRP2 pedals and ultimately my recommendation on whether you should give these a go or give them a miss. I'm always completely transparent with our reviews, so it is worth noting that MOZA sent these CRP2 pedals to us for testing and review. But as with every review we produce, it doesn't affect anything I'm about to say. So just what are the MOZA CRP2 pedals? Well, they're essentially an upgraded version of MOZA's range-topping sim racing pedal. They feature a pretty big design overhaul compared to the originals, bringing them more in line with recent products, along with a few improvements throughout. One of the big perks of these pedals is that they can be used with the MOZA R3 wheelbase and be fully functional on Xbox consoles. This alone is pretty mega for Xbox sim racers looking to upgrade their R3 bundle. And these pedals are certainly one hell of an upgrade compared to the SRP Lite pedals that you do get with an R3. The price of the MOZA CRP2 pedals is pretty important because the starting price is £100 or dollars cheaper than the original CRP pedals. You could buy the CRP2 pedals as a 2-pedal set with a $100 or pound clutch add-on available. The original pedals didn't have the option to buy as just a 2-pedal set, so you were forced into paying that little bit extra for a full 3-pedal configuration, no matter whether you wanted a clutch or not. So this little bit of extra flexibility is nice to see. This puts the starting price for the CRP2s at $399, £399 or €449. And for that, you get a load cell brake pedal, a throttle and the base plate. You can then upgrade to a 3-pedal set, bringing the total up to £500 or dollars, or €550, which is the same price as the original pedals, but at least you've got the choice now. Comparing these to direct competition, you have got the Fanatec Club Sport V3s, which retail at around $400 or euros, although these don't have quite as much adjustability and the load cell is rated much lower than the CRP2. There is also the Ace-Tech La Prima pedals, which are close in performance to the CRP2s, and they offer a 2-pedal configuration for just over $400 or euros. So for your money, what are you getting with the CRP2s? Well, to start with, they're a reasonably premium load cell pedal set that use a 200 kg load cell sensor. That amount of force detection is more than enough for most, with other sim racing pedals typically ranging between 100 and 180 kg, putting the CRP2 at the higher end. This load cell is paired with a 15-bit angle sensor that MOZA says uses an industry-first algorithm to help create extreme precision over your inputs. These two sensors work together to detect how much force you're applying at any given time, and you can adjust which sensor takes priority using MOZA's software. The damper behind the brake pedal is customizable to fit your ideal setup, with 125 different combinations available. I'll touch on this more later in this review, but MOZA is using a combination of different small dampening blocks to achieve this setup, which is pretty neat, although it's not too dissimilar from what we've seen from SimMagic with their brake pedals. As I mentioned, the design of the CRP2 has some similarities to the older pedals, such as the base plate, which looks pretty recognisable. The rest of the pedal set is almost entirely different though. Each pedal has moved the spring and damping mechanism to inside the damping block at the rear of each pedal. This is a good move as it limits any dust or debris that might interfere with the mechanism. I also really like the updated design direction. It's a good move to get away from the bare metal industrial look with sharp corners to this more subtle, sleek and upmarket design. Everything is constructed from pretty high-end materials, with the entirety of each pedal using aerospace grade aluminium, with the base using steel, and there's a big splash of carbon fibre across the heel plate. This is generally pretty useless, but it looks neat. Now, one area I really want to discuss with these pedals is just how easy they are to adjust. Most sim racing brands are really improving in this aspect, with pedals from Simucube and Ace-Tech both featuring tool-free adjustments. MOZA has implemented this in these CRP2 pedals and you can adjust a few things before you actually need to dive into your drawer of Allen keys. To start with, you can swap out the dampening blocks and springs by unscrewing the rear of the pedal arm. This allows the pedal to slide away from the damper and gives you direct access to the internal mechanism. With these pedals, MOZA's introduced a really neat way of setting up your brake stiffness. They allow you to use a combination of 8 small dampening blocks or springs, each with its own stiffness to create your perfect combination. Stacking these in various ways can alter how the brake feels, and MOZA themselves provide a few recommendations to help you achieve an F1 style, a GT style, or other options for your brake. I have the additional performance kit here, which includes extra dampening blocks and springs that can also be combined to give further customization. Moving away from the damper, you can also adjust the shaft directly behind the brake to affect the brake preload and the firmness of the pedal. The throttle has a similar adjustment available at the rear, which will help affect stiffness. There is also another spring for the throttle, which can make the throttle feel a little bit stiffer. And while this is a welcome addition, I probably would have preferred it to be a little bit stiffer still. Once you do break out the toolbox, each of the 3 pedals can be adjusted in numerous other ways. The height and angle of each pedal face, the pedal travel, and the clutch pedal feel are all adjustable. Mounting each pedal is a similarly well thought out process. The pedals can be laid out across the base with a wide variety in the spacing, and there are 12 pre-drilled holes to choose from, giving you a fair bit of choice, especially if you're only running 2 out of the 3 pedals. The cabling from each pedal runs through a slot gap that spans almost the entire width of the pedal tray, and they all connect to the base in a really tidy way that is hidden out of sight. This is great for those with a keen eye on cable management. You can mount the pedals to your sim rig using 4 pre-drilled holes, and these should fit most sim rig pedal trays and were absolutely fine with my 8020 GT Omega Prime. There is a bonus of mounting these pedals inverted, similar to the Fanatec Clubsport V3s, although I haven't got the inverted mounting kit to hand, so I can't really provide too much more information on that. And just a word of warning, with all 3 pedals mounted, this whole pedal set becomes extremely heavy to move. Now, as with all MOZA Racing products, Pithouse is your go-to platform for making software adjustments. The majority of adjustments over how the pedal feels is done through the physical changes. However, you can adjust the input curves for each pedal using Pithouse. There are a range of preset options, or you can go to town on creating your own custom curve. This is also where the calibration is performed, so you can change the end point of the pedal travel. Because these CRP2 pedals use both a load cell and angle sensor, a bar is included that lets you adjust which sensor is more responsible for producing that final output. Moving this output ratio bar to the left will mean the pedal relies more on the angle sensor, while moving it further right gives the load cell higher priority. Now, I did run into a really small issue when I was first connecting my CRP2 pedals. I was trying to use the universal hub that MOZA has to keep all my cables tidy. When connecting the pedals to Pithouse using the universal hub, the software recognised these CRP2 pedals as the SRP Lite pedals. Now, I tried updating the firmware for the universal hub and the pedals, and also updating the Pithouse version, but nothing I did could get around this. In the end, I reverted back to connecting my pedals to the wheelbase directly, which allowed them to show up just fine in Pithouse as the CRP2s. Now, I'm not quite sure what caused this issue, but I can imagine it was probably a simple firmware glitch, maybe due to be running some pre-release software. Now, since my first run out with the CRP2 pedals, I've been pretty impressed. The amount of pressure on both the throttle and brake is really good, and the 3-stage clutch is one of the better clutch pedals I've used. Some pedals can feel a bit funky when you first use them. For example, the initial shock of just how stiff a high-end load cell pedal can feel is a little bit weird. But I have the CR2 brake damper set up with the soft to medium damping blocks, and this gives a really nice kind of 2-stage feel to the brake pedal. The initial push is relatively soft, and this mimics when the pads are making contact with the brake discs, and then the whole pedal stiffens up a lot as you reach the peak braking force. I tried a few combinations of different brake dampers and adjusting the pedal travel, and the feel of the brake can range from incredibly stiff with barely any movement to something much lighter with quite a big range of travel. The brake and throttle movement was also incredibly smooth, with a really nice amount of rebound as you lifted off each pedal. I did notice that the throttle pedal in particular does make a slightly funky noise as you press and release it, and it's a bit louder to operate than other pedals I've been using, such as the Simucube throttle or the Acertech Forte, although the throttle pedal is well dampened when you reach 100% input. For example, the Forte pedal from Acertech has a really harsh impact at 100% throttle, which I'm glad these CRP2 pedals don't have. Now, I felt really confident under braking with the brake pedal, as it had such a good range of movement and feels really fluid. It really didn't take me very long to find that sweet spot, and that probably says a lot as I'm coming directly from a Simucube active pedal, which has force feedback to tell you when you're about to lock a brake or about to exceed your peak braking force. The CRP2 brake doesn't include any force feedback or haptics such as the Club Sport V3s or the active pedal does, but the pedal feel alone let me get into a really comfortable spot very quickly. Now, like all PC-based sim racing hardware, compatibility is excellent as you can simply attach these pedals directly to your PC using a USB cable. This lets you use any other racing wheel, wheelbase or accessory with these MOZA pedals. If you are already in the MOZA ecosystem though, there is a port for an RJ45 cable that lets you connect these pedals directly to your wheelbase, which is the route I took. This let me avoid having another USB cable running into my PC, and this connection works with all current MOZA wheelbases, although I can only confirm it works with the MOZA R12, R5 and R21, as these are the three wheelbases that I've tested with these pedals. Now, to round out this review, I have to say I do really like this pedal set. The CRP2 pedals is the best load cell pedal MOZA has produced to date, with big improvements over the older CRPs. Both the design and performance on offer well surpass the cheaper SRP and SRP Lite pedals as well. Including Xbox compatibility with the R3 wheelbase makes MOZA's console viability much better. Previously, Xbox sim racers were stuck with the not so great SRP Lite pedals, making the CRP2s a huge improvement. If you currently own a set of the older CRP pedals, I probably wouldn't rush out or recommend throwing them out and replacing them with the CRP2s. Although there are some key improvements, not enough has changed to make that swap. Instead, if I were a CRP owner, I'd probably be holding out to see how expensive or just how good the M booster pedals are. But if you don't own a load cell pedal set or are trying to decide between these and similar products, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend the CRP2s. MOZA's ecosystem is quickly growing to be one of the largest and most well-rounded of any sim racing brand, and these pedals offer a lot of performance at a slightly lower price tag than some of the other options.